What's up, guys? So today I wanted to actually talk about a dietary issue. I had somebody ask me about eggs recently and whether or not they were healthy. This is a question that I've seen going on as long as I've been doing this, a very long time. People wonder, is the cholesterol a problem? If it is a problem, what kind of problems does it cause? So I just kind of wanted to address that here. So in March, there was a paper published in the Journal of the American Medical Association that showed an association between increased egg consumption and higher rates of cardiovascular disease and death. So when you see that and you wonder, man, should I cut out eggs completely? There was a study a while back that talked about it being as bad as smoking a cigarette or even a pack of cigarettes every day, something absurd like that, which I hope most people have the common sense to realize how ridiculous a statement like that is. But even here, it showed a 17 to 18% increased risk in cardiovascular disease and death. And so that's not nothing when you hear that. And so we want to dig into that and say, is that something we should be worried about? Because obviously eggs are a staple for a lot of people trying to gain muscle. So is that something that we actually have to worry about? So one of the big problems with this study, which is a problem in a lot of dietary studies, is that they're based on recall. So they'll ask the subjects, how much of this do you tend to eat? And that's really all they're going on, is just their memory of what they ate. With this study, it was even worse than normal because over 10, 20, 30 years, they only asked the subjects once about their dietary habits. So imagine being asked, how much pizza do you typically eat? And then 10 years down the road, when they're looking at your health, they say, well, this is probably related to how much pizza they ate. It's not a perfect analogy, but I'm just saying that on the whole, to only be asked once over that entire period how many eggs they typically ate, it is kind of ridiculous. And the problem is there's just not a lot of money in some of these studies. This was actually a pretty large sample size, but still they're not always held to the highest standards in terms of how they're carried out. Now that alone makes me question the study entirely. It's very hard to control for 30 years of habits when you're just asking them once about their dietary habits. Secondly, the sample size was so large, and when they are so large, you can often kind of find trends, maybe where really there's nothing there. With such a large sample size, you can kind of move things around and find things where there might not actually be anything there. But let's just pretend that the study is actually accurate, okay? So let's say that their recall information was perfect and they were able to control for all these variables. What is the actual increase here? Because you have to consider the absolute risk versus the relative risk and what those mean. And so really the overall risk here for somebody who's eating eggs isn't that dramatic. And also, why do people single out eggs specifically? Yes, eggs are high in cholesterol, but chicken is high in cholesterol. Shrimp is very high in cholesterol, and most people would say eating shrimp is completely healthy. I've never seen an article questioning shrimp, or at least nowhere near as commonly as people questioning eggs. But I mean, a serving size of shrimp could easily have 50 to 100% of your daily recommended cholesterol. Most studies show positive benefits from white meat like chicken or from seafood. So again, if we're going to try to vilify eggs, are we vilifying eggs inherently, or is it the cholesterol in the eggs? What's going on there? Another thing, at the end of this study, they actually do mention that increased egg consumption was correlated with lower LDL cholesterol. Now, there's a lot of speculation, as I've mentioned in other videos, whether or not dietary cholesterol is going to impact blood levels of cholesterol. For the most part, it seems like they don't have that much of an impact on blood levels of cholesterol. In this case, though, the higher egg consumption actually correlated with lower LDL. And again, the premise that all LDL is bad is often questioned to begin with. But if we, again, just take that assumption that LDL is bad, which is what a lot of people will state, well, then this brought down LDL anyway. So again, it's really not a clear picture that eggs are bad, as this article might suggest. I'm also going to link several studies down below that show either positive benefits from egg consumption or no correlation at all with coronary heart disease or death. So on the whole, I think moderate consumption of eggs is completely fine. If you're really that concerned about your cholesterol levels, you can get them checked and then get them checked afterwards if you've been eating more eggs. But again, just because your cholesterol changes doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to have a tangible effect on your overall health. So be smart with this sort of things. Eat most foods in moderation and you should be fine.